Hello and welcome to It's All Blakademik with your host, myself, Jordan Jarrett-Bryan. And on this week's show, I want to have a discussion about a woman who I think is beyond fantastic, one of my favourite people on the planet. And to do so, I'm going to do it with my fantastic panel here today. I've got Addy here, athlete and broadcaster. You well?
I'm very well, Jordan.
Good, thanks for joining me once again. I've also got B. Tajudeen here, founder of Black Blossoms. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Thanks for coming on the show this week.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for coming. And Michelle Moore here, fantastic sports consultant. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Thanks for joining us here. So let's get straight into it. I'll start with you, Addy. One word I want from you, when you think of Serena Williams, what's the first word that comes to mind?
I mean, there's so many words to describe Serena, but I think iconic. Yeah, I just think she's so far ahead of everyone in her sport as an athlete. I mean, she's been beaten. You know, there's Justine Henin has beaten her in Grand Slams, and you've had Kleisters has beaten her as well. But the thing about Serena is when Serena plays her best, no one touches her. No one touches her. And for me, what's going to actually define Serena is not what she does on the tennis court, it's what she does afterwards. Because what she's doing on the tennis court is going to be a moment in history. You know, it's going to be a period. But what's going to make her legacy last for hundreds of years is what she does afterwards.
I love that. Michelle, Addy touched on some of her, fact that how great she is as an athlete and what she's done on the court. And I want to develop that as well, but I want to focus more on Serena Williams, the woman. What's the first word that comes to mind to you when you hear the name Serena Williams?
Serena is just incredible. So whenever I think about Serena, I think of the word greatness, because she just represents so much more than being an athlete. She stands up and challenges the status quo. She challenges inequalities in a way that other athletes often don't do it. She uses every opportunity to call out injustice, to call out sexism and racism, and she experiences the intersections of those all of the time, and she's held to a different kind of standard to her white counterparts. So for me, I admire her tremendously for what she does off the court as well as on the court.
I want to develop some of those ideas a little bit later as well. But B, for you, same question, from an image point of view, when you think of Serena Williams, what's the first thing you think of?
Powerful. I think the way she plays the game, her body, her mannerisms, the way she intersects with popular culture, she's just a powerful force. And
Powerful, that's interesting. And as a woman, we had a debate on one of our previous shows about the greatest black athletes of all time, and she came up a lot in that discussion. Do you think that, as someone that's maybe not massively into sport, is the fact that she transcends sport important to you?
Definitely. As much as I think of Serena as the tennis star, I also think about her now as a mother. I think about her as a black woman. Daily, actually, I think about how she navigates these very white industries as a black woman, and I think a lot of black women in professional spaces can relate to being the only black person in the room or the only black woman in the room, and that's what Serena does for me. I feel like she brings her best unrelentlessly, whilst also not dimming her light. Like, she's just so powerful, and that for me is really the most important thing, because it also makes me not want to dim my light in the sea of whiteness that I could be.
I mean, that's such a really good point in terms of she is playing in a sport and in a world that is predominantly white.
I was going to ask you that,
and for a lot of people, that can be so intimidating that they go into their shell and they could be someone else. But from what I get, I've never met Serena personally, I think she is who she is. You know, she's being true to herself. And that is really, really difficult in an arena where you've got so much spotlight on you. It's easy for you to put on a mask and be someone else.
Perform.
And also the fact that she's changed, I think, the way people, brands and everybody looks at I'm trying to think of the best way of putting this, but the physical form of a female athlete. You know, in the past, I think when people look at tennis players, it's always, you know, they have to look a certain way, probably more like the Maria Sharapova. So, but she's big, she's strong, and she's not someone that people would have associated in the past with a female tennis player. And that's so great, because what that must do for other women who feel or have that her body type, to have that confidence, to see her strutting around doing that stuff, I think is amazing.
Do you know what I love about her as well, the tennis player, is that, as you both mentioned, she's clearly a powerful athlete, a strong athlete, a quick athlete, but I think that she combines that really well with being very graceful and very technical on the court as well, which I think gets overlooked as well. Do you accept that as well?
Oh yeah.
She's not just a brute force that can hit the ball a million miles. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, technically she is incredible, and it's that whole thing. I spoke about this on another one of these shows about Michael Jordan, in terms of finding an athlete and then adding that technical ability. When you have an athlete, that you can beat them with technical ability, but if you have an athlete with technical ability, it's all over. And that's what she's got. She's got those two combined, and you have to give plaudits to her family, her father and her sister. You know, they are probably as much a part of her success as she is, because of, you know, the forward thinking. You know, her serve, I've heard from a lot of tennis experts, is probably the best serve, if not one of the greatest serves of all time, technically.
I want to develop more about her family as well, but you work with a lot of young girls.
I do.
What do you think has been the impact Serena Williams has had on young girls, and specifically young black girls? Do they look at her as someone to aspire to, especially in a sport that is, as Addy says, a predominantly white sport?
I think she has such a powerful image that for young women, they look at her and they think, if she can do it, I can do it. And often we underestimate the power of a sports role model. And for lots of young women who see her, they see her being unapologetically herself. So both Venus and Serena, you know, they came into tennis, and tennis didn't want to know them. Tennis, the establishment, very, very white. And we've got these two young black women who are amazing. And tennis was like, well, they don't look like the typical tennis player, the westernized version of what a female body should look like. They're black, they've got beads in their hair, they're exuberant, they're calling out injustice when they see it, they're actually being vocal, and they don't want that.
Do you know, going on that tip as well, they even discombobulated the commentators because they didn't know how to describe them. You could hear them struggling for words in order to describe them, and that in itself, I think, was amazing.
Yeah, but for young women, what they see is they see themselves in Serena. And so a lot of the time, Serena has this way where she is able to navigate the space that she's in, but also talk to everyday black people, you know, in a way that's not putting on any airs and graces. Often in her post-interview matches, she's saying it how it is. She's, you know, applauding her opponent, but at the same time she's calling out the things that she thinks are important. And I think for young women, when they see that kind of strident confidence, they think that they feel as if they can achieve as well. They don't, it's not just within sport. Often it means that those young women that maybe are the shy ones in the classroom, that when they see a black woman that's articulating her feelings and what's going on in the world, they take inspiration from that.
Speaks French now as well, so she can articulate in different languages
She can,
as well.
she can.
Tell you it.
Yeah. For me, I think the word that doesn't really come to mind when we discuss Serena previously, I would definitely say in the last 2 to 3 years, is that she's sexy. Like, Serena for me is a sexy black woman who plays sport.
She's a sexy woman, period.
She's a sexy woman who plays sport. She owns it on and off the court. And I think, especially because she's dark skinned and she doesn't have that typical slim, whatever body shape that is in fashion, she has her very own thick black woman body shape. And me and my friends, when we saw her in the Beyonce video, in Lemonade, we were screaming, like we recreated that scene actually quite a few times. But I remember just like screaming and being like, oh my gosh, like look at her, like she's just so hot, she's sexy, and then she goes on the court and she's pointing to the white guy, don't chat shit to me. And it's all of that, and it's just like, it's so exciting because, again, like I'm not really that big into sport, but it's exciting to see black women take up space like that, because the confidence the next day that black women have going into the office after she wins is like, yeah, you know, Serena won. You know, half of us didn't watch it, but we all know that Serena won, and we all have that energy. And so I appreciate Serena Williams for that.
And in a way that Addy was mentioning, that commentators within sport didn't quite know how to describe how she played and her sister played. Do you feel there was a similar social failing in commentary of how to describe her? They didn't want to call her sexy, but I think she's very attractive.
I think if we look back in the media at like how Serena has been described, she's been called a man, she's been called a gorilla.
Who called her a man?
Quite a few that they'll say
she's got man
traits.
traits.
She's got manly traits. How can we even, is it fair for her to play against other women, because you know? So I think, and if you look, and I think if we tied that in with how black women pre-slavery have been described as well, the same kind of connotations are there.
But I think you're right in a way as well, because having Serena out there and the way and her attitude, the way she carries herself, actually allows us to have another conversation, and a conversation about race and how black women are perceived out there in the public circle. I think it's a really important conversation that people have been scared to have a talk about. I think she has also talked about her frustrations in terms of, as the greatest female athlete there, why isn't she the highest paid female athlete? Why is it Maria Sharapova is getting more brand endorsements than she is? And what is it because of? Is it the fact that she's not as marketable as Maria Sharapova, and why not? Yeah.
We know, when it comes to Maria Sharapova, I physically actually feel a bit sick when I think about her. How much she earns compared to Serena, it's just criminal. The amount of times that Serena and Venus have been drug tested and never ever failed a drugs test, and Maria Sharapova, and the way that she was, when she, actually people were quite kind to her when she was caught with, taking drugs.
Sympathetic towards
her.
Very
sympathetic to Maria Sharapova. And so I think that we know what the tennis world is like when they love their athletes, when they love their tennis players, when they love Maria Sharapova, they love John McEnroe. They show so much love for these athletes, and they show nothing like that for Serena and Venus.
So you don't think Serena and Venus are loved by the tennis world?
Not at all, not at all. If you think about the kinds of things that they've had to deal with, the racist chanting from crowds, the abuse from other tennis players. You've got the likes of Wozniacki, Djokovic, putting towels up their shirts, mimicking the physical traits of Serena. And these athletes and the crowds are not held to any account.
No.
The tennis authorities, the white establishment of tennis, do not like the Williams sisters, never have. They've never been prepared for them, because they feel as if they've come into their sport and they feel challenged by it. Yeah, they're a dominant force within tennis.
It sounds, to me, that's absolutely ridiculous, because I think they've opened up the market for a whole new generation and a different culture of people to come in and feel embraced by tennis.
But maybe that is the problem.
What, to have loads of black people turning up to Wimbledon?
Of course.
Wanting our
baseball caps and our
plantains and dumplings.
And
plantain with strawberries and stuff.
Plantain with strawberries. Too far.
Dumpling and strawberries.
And isn't it interesting, though, that in a similar way, Tiger Woods has infiltrated a white sport and is embraced, Serena Williams and her sister are not embraced in their sport. Do you know what I mean?
It's to do with being a black woman.
And a dark-skinned black woman.
Exactly.
Wow, we're even going to shades now.
I think it's even the misogynoir of it all. It's definitely the misogynoir of it all, because even if you look how... so if you look how...
That's a toxic combination of racism.
Wow, you're educating me.
That's a new word.
Tiger had space to, be the very nice black man within the golfing world. This is my very limited sports knowledge. And then all of a sudden he's cheated on his wife, and then we see that sort of sheet being taken underneath him, and we see that the way he's a black man again. His race is definitely mentioned. Serena's always constantly has her race mentioned. She's constantly critiqued on her race. But what I've seen, which is quite interesting, is the sort of tennis world media, their response to Naomi.
Well, I want to bring that up because I'm wondering if
And who is a lighter skinned with curly hair. And of course she didn't beat Serena.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because the Time article that just came out with her face on it, I can't remember the words verbatim, but it was something about she beat Serena. It was like all of a sudden, yes, someone's beat Serena.
Yeah, they were happy about it.
They were very happy about it. And I think they were just kinder to her because she's lighter skinned.
Well, I want to know, I'll ask you, Michelle, because we've had chats about that incident and the outbursts and her being outspoken about what she felt was an injustice in that game, Serena Williams talking about here. Do you feel, and you mentioned the fact that she's been very active in speaking out against anti-feminism and people and racism, do you feel that that was the right time and place to make her point? Or do you feel that there's another woman on the other side that deserves her moment of winning a slam, and Serena Williams in some ways took that moment away from another woman?
Well, I really don't like how you phrased that.
Go on,
to be frank, the man in this situation robbed both of the women in this game, and that was Ramos, the umpire. And so he stole from us an amazing tennis match because he could have diffused the situation like most umpires would do in a championship game, in my view. But we had, she had 3 violations. One of those was to do with her coach, wasn't her. And what you had is a situation where she was held to a different account as a black woman. She's not allowed, she's not being afforded the space to express her frustration like her white male counterparts, like her white female counterparts in tennis. And so therefore you have a situation where she calls out the umpire and she's angry. You know what? Black women have every right to be angry. Most black women are not afforded that, that space to be angry. Is it unfortunate that it happened at that time? Well, the reality was it happened there and then. She made her point, and then when she came back round at the end, after the match, she used that position to applaud her her opponent in terms of Naomi, and she afforded Naomi, she gave Naomi the due status, and there was so much love between the two of them. And so for me, it's not a question of timing. That happened at that moment, and it had to be tackled at that moment.
So that's what I'm asking. Do you think it was worthy of taking? Because that final will be remembered not for her first slam. It will be remembered. Do you know? So was it worth her standing up for herself, taking the moment away from another?
What she was doing is she was doing it for her opponent, and she was doing it for all other black female tennis players, and she articulated that beautifully in her post-match interview, where she says she has to stand up and take those moments and take the hard hits, and she knows that when she's doing it, what's going to come, the repercussions. And all black women could actually identify with that, because when we're in those situations in a work environment, a professional setting, where it's where there's lots of the establishment is white, and we call something out and we know that we shouldn't do it because we know that our abilities will be questioned after that. In that moment, it is so freeing. It is your space to express yourself.
Are we in danger of being in an echo chamber here, though, a little bit, in just sort of agreeing? Because I'm sure there'll be people out there who might look at it and say, well, she broke the rules. She spoke up when...
And men break the rules as well.
And
they're allowed to get away with it.
I get it.
But what I'm trying to understand is why and I'm not saying I agree with them, but why did all the other tennis pundits all say what Serena did was wrong?
Because they're racialised. It's racialised commentary. Most of the media is white media. They don't understand the nuances of race and sexism and misogynoir. They don't get it. So why would we expect anything different from them?
And how can we change that, though? I mean,
we need more black, Asian, brown media commentators, producers.
Yeah, Jordan.
Yeah, come on, sort it out, Jordan.
I think, sorry, can I just interject as well? So I think the next day, even if it was the next day, but within 12 hours, Mark Knight released a cartoon of Serena Williams, and like it was very reminiscent of the Jim Crow era, big lips, Serena like this towering black woman against like a small Naomi and the pundit.
That was almost their excuse to kind of be racist.
Yeah,
this
it
is
was
our moment
and I think that's what that's the most important part of Serena being there and being present and being fully herself. Because if that cartoon didn't come out, we might have not been able to have an honest conversation about black women
and how she's perceived,
and being angry and the angry black woman, you know, trying to like reframe that actually we have a reason to be angry. We should be allowed to express all our emotions at all times. So it always
like
opens
everybody
up like everybody else. And I think a lot of what Naomi, a lot of Serena Williams, like when she spoke about her pregnancy and about how she nearly died, black women are more likely to die during childbirth. So a lot of things that happen to Serena Williams, like any other famous black woman, it just allows us to have more open conversations in society about black women and X, Y, and Z, you know?
What would have been quite difficult, as a fellow presenter, is being in that situation. There would have been a part of me that wanted to defend Serena.
Totally.
But there would also been a part of me in my head that would have thought, this could descend into some silly argument and we will lose the point. And it will take away from Serena's achievements and it could turn into a black versus white thing. And that's the complex situation that you would find yourself in that situation, trying to defend Serena.
I hear you.
Yeah, and I think it's like, do you take it away from that arena and say, look, maybe this isn't the place to talk about it and we can discuss it another place?
I think we should be defending black women in all kind of social spaces, regardless of if it descends into a battle of black and white, because black women are never defended. And I think even those silly moments, like as you put it, even silly moments, it just allows for wider conversations to be had. The people at home deserve to hear people defending Serena. The black women deserve to hear a black man or someone defending a black woman live on national TV, the same way white viewers deserve to see that black women are being stuck up for.
The nuance is defending them, but bringing people in. I think you don't want to defend Serena and then push other people away. Because I'm trying to look at it from someone else's perspective, and someone else who doesn't understand race will probably think, well, I don't know what's the big deal
about. I want to bring in something else I think is important as well, Michelle. Her sister and her family and the role that they've played in Serena Williams' career and how she's gone. Is Venus Williams arguably the more important of the two, in the sense that she came first and she maybe kicked open the doors for her sister to come through and kill it later on? Does she not get, do we forget about Venus?
I think we do. I think that Serena always gives Venus the due props.
She does.
And without Venus, we'd have no Serena.
Yep.
There is no way that Serena would be achieving at the levels that she's achieving now and have done what she's done without Venus leading the way. Venus just doesn't get as much press. We know Venus was strident in making sure and putting us across all of the developments in the game around equal pay. We know that Venus has always been the confidant to Serena and has been always championing her. And so the impact of Venus and the rest of the family and the dad, in terms of what he's done and the sacrifices he's made, have been tremendous on Serena and have made her the champion that she is today.
What do you want to see Serena Williams, as she's come into the latter years of her career, what would you like to see Serena Williams do next, post-tennis?
I think she can do anything. I think she's got so much confidence in herself and she's got so much support, I think, from the black community, that she can create so much change. What I'd really like is, sometimes I've been quite disappointed when it comes to a sport which is dominated by, or is a white sport, as we like to say. I'd like to see more black female athletes come into tennis. I think
is there anything that she can do to actually actively and tangibly make that happen?
I think she could possibly go out to to continent of Africa, have more tennis clubs over there, or tennis academies, because I think tennis is a really difficult sport to get into because it's so expensive.
She does have one with her sister in America, to be fair, but beyond America.
But it has to be beyond America because, Americans have that opportunity. There are great athletes in Africa who would never even dream or think about taking up tennis. And if they saw Serena Williams and Venus Williams turn up with an academy over there, We could have the first African winner of a Grand Slam quite easily because of her. You know, I think it's good being great at the time and winning all of these Grand Slams, but what will make her really proud is what she leaves behind.
The legacy.
Yeah.
In a similar way that recently Jamelia and Raheem Sterling have outed the media in terms of how the press and the media talk about black people, famous people, have you noticed a change, maybe you haven't, but a change in how the media talk about Serena Williams, especially when she had the catsuit, which was criticised for wearing that, and it was madness. But have you noticed a slight shift in how people see and perceive and talk about Serena Williams?
Amongst my friendship group, I'll definitely say when we was younger, we wasn't looking at Serena and thinking, oh wow, we want to be like her. But now we do want to be like her. We all want to be like Serena Williams. And I think that is because there are just a few more black women writing articles. We need way more black women writing articles around Serena Williams, around just as you said in the beginning, like the technique of the sport and things like that. But no, I don't think there's been a huge shift in the way white press talk about, or mainstream press talk about Serena Williams. I think they're kind of just, it sounds, I don't want to sound too pessimistic, but sometimes I feel like there is this waiting for her to fail.
100%.
Like, yeah, they're waiting for her to do something.
She's done too much.
Yeah,
she can
she's
never
so
fail
great.
Now.
She's,
she
you know, and that's the thing. She is.
Even if she never won a game for the rest of her life, she'd still be
she's
great.
Serena Williams, you know. So
it's interesting that she had a game recently against Roger Federer, where even he said after the game, she is the greatest player of all time, and it's coming from someone who people who like tennis revere as the greatest player. He himself has kind of deferred that title to her. Does that maybe have an impact on? Well, if Roger Federer is saying it, then maybe we should take note and listen. Not us, but the non-black community.
Potentially, yes. I mean, that was a wonderful moment. They did the whole selfie thing.
It was brilliant.
And it was great. But I think Roger knows that Serena Williams has redefined tennis. He understands the impact that she has had and will continue to have. She is an activist. She is a massive advocate for women's sport. She was inspired by her own role model, was Althea Gibson, who was the first black female tennis player to win Wimbledon, who faced abject poverty, who lived in her car at different times. And I remember Serena Williams writing to Althea Gibson a letter about when she was 18, about how Althea had inspired her. So what Serena does is she inspires the next and the future generation of black female tennis players coming through, and beyond just sport. And we will be eternally grateful to her for that. So if she doesn't do anything ever again after she retires, she's done more than enough. But she will continue to be an activist. She'll continue to be a champion. She's, you know, she mixes with Billie Jean King, and she's a part of all of those. So many exciting developments outside of sport, which is about supporting black communities, supporting young black women within sport, to be a part of sport, participate in sport. So for me, she is in a class of her own right now, and forevermore she'll be somebody that has continued to challenge the status quo and continue to make tennis a completely different sport to what it was before.
And just super briefly, you two, I'll ask this question to. What do you think, or how do you think she should be honoured? Because like I said, she's coming to the end of her career now. Are we talking about naming a US Open stadium after Serena Williams? Are we talking about statues? I mean, we're talking on that kind of level. We're talking about the greatest athlete of all time, possibly.
I think.
Or is her impact in on how girls are now seeing themselves and feeling empowered? Is that maybe enough?
No, it's never enough. A statue, definitely. I do think she should be immortalised in every single way possible that any of her other counterparts would be immortalised. And it's.
I think it's whatever way they choose to, or the world chooses to remember Serena. I think it's important that something is done, simply because we want to have a memory of this greatness, which will go throughout time inspiring people. It can't be forgotten, because you know the way the world moves so quickly, media moves so quickly. She could retire today, and in 10, 15 years time there'll be someone else, other people who've come in, and she'll be a distant memory.
We need to see something, a statue
so
or a
we
stadium
need something that
tangible.
Every time there's some young kid that feels down or that needs that little kick, they look up and they say, look at Serena, look what she did, you know, and don't forget, you can be like her.
So yeah, thank you very much for joining us on this week's show. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel on YouTube, Blakademik TV, minus the C's. We're on all the socials, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as well. Peace.